Here's a little history of Essex and Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Evidence of shipbuilding in Essex and Old Saybrook is well documented. Along with several yards in Essex, this area of the town has produced over 500 ships, creating a prosperous maritime village by the 1790s. This general location was also noted for a skirmish between local militia and British during the British raid on Essex in 1814. Over the years, there were archaeological digs where late 18th and early 19th century musket balls were found. This location in the Connecticut River is also where British grounded and burned an American vessel during a commandeer attempt. The vessel was named the Young Anaconda. As the British were getting out of the Young Anaconda, militia and private citizens started firing on them from the woods. The British returned fire and then burned the vessel in the river. With all this rich history, this area is an excellent location to explore. My equipment of choice for this investigation is the XP Deus metal detector. I'll use the bigger coil to investigate larger open areas and the smaller coil to search in tight spaces. Archaeologists credited metal detectors in a 2017 New York Times article with finding 80% of the artifacts that were cataloged in a 1600s contact period archaeological site. Due to the substantial amount of metal in historic artifact assemblages, the metal detector is well suited for historical archaeology. Here I am in Old Saybrook investigating the remains of what looks to be a rail system. An old axle. The rail system looks like it leads straight down into the water. See the old tracks, how they run down straight into the water. So I'm here with my metal detector, finding things that could be associated with it, looking for any kind of shipbuilding materials or hand tools or anything like that. Anything that might indicate something like this went on sometime in the history. Some of my finds from this day included glass, some unknown ferrous and non-ferrous objects, rail spikes, long steel bolts, heavy gauge wire, and even a pinback first lieutenant's bar insignia from the early 1900s. A couple of interesting finds, probably not related to the potential shipbuilding site here, but something worth mentioning. Right here we've got a shoe buckle completely intact. As you can see, it's got the chape and the tongue. The frame is in decent condition. Something like this would date to the 1700s. It was a couple inches underground, probably about 6 inches underground. So potentially one newer site, this rail system, on top of this older site where I found the shoe buckle and piece of scrap lead. Interesting bit about this area in Old Saybrook is there is some Revolutionary War and War of 1812 activity here. So older items like this from colonial times are interesting anytime you find them in an area with historical significance like this. Let's take a closer look at the cast copper alloy shoe buckle. Dating between 1720 and 1790, the loop chape with 2 spikes and a double pitchfork tongue was the most widely used method of securing medium to large size shoe buckles. These buckles fell from fashion during the 1790s when long trousers began to replace breeches and tights. After 1800, shoe buckles were used mainly on uniforms and elegant clothing. The molten lead glob weighed in at 25 grams. Because of this location's Revolutionary War history, I decided to use the lead's weight in a formula. The formula is used to figure out if molten lead could have been a musket ball at one time or was intended to be poured into a mold to become a musket ball. Battlefield archaeologist Dan Civilich came up with a formula to take a non-spherical piece of lead and calculate its diameter based on its weight. I figured the diameter of this lead to be 0.652 inches, potentially translating into a .65 caliber musket ball. Let's take a closer look at muskets to figure out the possibility of a .65 caliber round ball being used during the Revolutionary War. The 60 to 66 caliber musket balls were typically used in the 69 caliber French Charleville muskets carried by the American forces, with the most common American musket ball size being 63 caliber. Musket balls greater than 66 caliber were generally used in the 75 caliber Brown Bess carried by British forces. With the British having a military service standard size, their most common musket ball size was 69 caliber. The presence of lead bar fragments in molten lead would indicate musket ball production if this was the exact location of a known battlefield or camp. Although there was a War of 1812 skirmish nearby, it's tough to say a single molten lead fragment confirms musket ball production. If more molten lead is found, patterns of potential musket ball size may emerge. Provided the opportunity to continue investigating this riverside location, I hope to find more evidence of what this rail system was used for and what happened to this ground over the past centuries. If you'd like to see more videos like this, hover over that circle on your screen and click the subscribe button. Make sure you also turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon.